Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Xaereth Prevails, a Grand Arena story. We're still doing the 5v5 thing, and it's been a lot of fun. We're in a new group today, and I'm excited to show you guys the match. There's a lot of really interesting matches and counters that I'm going to show you guys. But first, huge shout out to all of my patrons. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate the support, and honestly, it's just been a lot of fun. So, if anyone is interested in joining my Patreon, please check out the link in the video description. But enough of that, let's move on to our match. As I said previously, we are in our second group of 5v5, and this is match 1. So I did manage to win my last match. I'm currently undefeated going into this match, and the goal, of course, is to win. My opponent has a really strong roster, however, and I'll show you guys the stats in just a minute, but his lifetime banners are pretty good, and all of his arena teams are pretty good. You can also see here that my opponent qualified, or whatever, got into Qi'ra, and got a pretty decent rank as well. So definitely not a slouch of a player. Someone I definitely need to be paying attention to. Looking at relics, I have a slight advantage in tier 7 relics. My opponent has we have pretty similar relics, honestly. This is about as close as you can get to equal on relics at this point, in my opinion. We have similar number of Zetas. He has more gear 13, which I'm not used to being out gear 13'd, but I do have more gear 12. It's pretty close as well. And mods, my opponent does hold a slight edge over me in terms of mods. In terms of lifetime banners and overall Grand Arena success, I have won a few more matches, but it's a small enough margin that this match is not going to just be a walkthrough. He's going to be a tough opponent regardless. Now, one of the things that I did scout as well before we started the match, and I did all my deployments, was I looked at his Commander Luke team just to see what kind of relics are there, to see if he'd be able to counter my General Skywalker team with them, and the answer is probably not, honestly. So I felt safe in being able to deploy my General Skywalker, which also in turn meant that he was probably going to keep his General Skywalker on offense, so I didn't have to really worry about trying to counter that. Now the teams in the front look maybe a little bit less strong than you would normally expect. There's a couple things, we'll kind of unpack these teams as we move along, but my opponent does have a pretty sneaky strong defense, in fact, so keep an eye out for that. Or don't. I don't care. So we're going to target the bottom zone first. The bottom zone has a Qi'ra Nest team in it, which we're going to use First Order against, and then there's also an Old Republic team. So, kind of the weaker zone of the two. And, I took First Order here just because they handle this Qi'ra team so nicely, and they're one of the best in the game, if not the best in the game, at managing Nest efficiently. You can really accomplish quite a bit using this team against Nest. However, there are a couple different things that we need to be on the lookout for. L3 has a pretty high number of health and protection and armor and everything. Nest is relic 4, so she's going to be capable of doing a lot of damage. The first target we need to do, though, is trying to hit Vander Chewbacca. He's the guy that's going to make this match hell if we're not careful. And so, we took him out, and then Lando was really close to dead after all of this, and so I just decided to take him out after Vander. One tricky thing, and I explain it in my other videos as well, but it does bear mentioning. If you try to stun Nest and then you hit L3 will just cleanse the stun on Nest. She passively cleanses things. And so you got to be careful here. Every time you put a debuff on her, and then you hit her, she either dispels herself or she dispels someone else. And so here we're just trying to take L3 out before we can actually manage Enfys Nest. And you see, First Order officer here, he took a pretty big hit. He's actually like the last person you want Nest to be hitting. And now that Nest is Alone, we're going to super speed everything up because I spent almost the entire rest of the match trying to regenerate First Order officers' health and protection. You see that it's just pretty far down. One thing that I kind of messed up here, I should have been doing more stuns with original Kylo, just because when we're trying to get the feat of doing all the stuns, and I just kind of forgot about that, so that was a mistake. Anyways, we're down to about a minute, and so we'll slow it down again. And First Order officer was not all the way regenerated. Like he was almost dead, and we just didn't have enough juice left. Like we didn't have enough time left, really. I don't know about this juice business. My 2-year-old could tell you more, but it's an important thing to remember that if you're trying to get max banners, that's wonderful. 60 banners is great, but it's not worth potentially losing a match over. And so I did chicken out. Maybe I could have actually stolen another banner, but it's really not worth finding out. 58 looks worlds better than like 40. Honestly, I mean, you guys know that. You can do math. Some of you, anyways, can. My patrons can. I don't know about the rest of you, but the fact remains that I did get the win. 58 banners isn't wonderful in that circumstance. I always want 60, but at the end of the day, I guess I'm just glad that First Order officer lived to provide one extra banner. Now we're gonna march into this Old Republic team, and my team composition is really strange because I needed to take Dooku and Sith Assassin and Emperor Palpatine for a feat, and this is actually a really great opportunity for me to be able to get this feat. It's I think that it's called like Forced Lightning, which is kind of funny because it's a forced team that we have to use. It's pretty awkward, but we're also trying to get a bunch of stuns, and that's another thing I just kind of forgot about here. And it's like I don't really know how to use Sith Assassin. I have her at gear 12, and I never ever use her for anything. And I don't know why I re-geared her when they give us the refund, but I did. And so she's at gear 12 and unused, except for this mission apparently. So Old Republic is a great team to be able to do this to, just because they're a little bit resilient, but they're not going to cause so much damage. They're never really going to threaten the match, really, as long as your characters are all pretty well geared, which mine are. They're all gear 12. I don't think a single one of them is gear 13, but neither is my opponent's teams, honestly. None of his characters are either. So, I kind of got unlucky there. I tried to use Shaak against their Zalbar, and it missed. And if you can get Shaak off on Zalbar, that's awesome, because then he can't passively taunt anymore. He can't gain buffs at all. And so we're honestly this match we tried to take out Canderous right away and Karth, because both of those guys are super easy to take out. Especially their Canderous was only gear 11, I believe, and Karth is pretty easy to take out at gear 12 regardless. And once you take those two guys out, then the rest of this team can be contained. I know that a lot of people target Mission first, and that's not necessarily like a bad idea, but at the same time, she only has one attack that she can do. She doesn't have an AoE, and she can be contained. If you can stun her, that's great, and she can be really tough to kill. Like if you're working on her and then she just goes stealth, then you don't really have much recourse for anything else. You're just basically stuck trying to target someone else until she eventually comes out of stealth, at which point, maybe Juhani or Zalbar is taunting, and, it can be really frustrating. And so, we targeted her last before Zalbar. Zalbar usually just comes last. That's just how it works. And let's speed this up a little bit, just because it takes a while to take him out. So once again, I've forgotten about my attempts at trying to get stun off on him, and I just really wish that I had remembered, because this is actually a great opportunity to rack up all of my stuns. And I'm sure I got a few stuns here, but the fact remains, like it's just it's kind of a missed opportunity here, honestly. So Zalbar is so tough to kill because he keeps racking up defense every time he takes damage, on his turn. Before he takes another turn, he gets an additional like 10 defense, which is a pretty arbitrary number, and I don't know what that means in terms of his overall armor stat or whatever, but it does make him really hard to kill sometimes. So 58 banners there is just fine. And in the back zone here, we have Geonosians and a fully relic Night Sister team, which is a little bit scary. But first we need to take out this other top zone, the other front zone rather. And so now we're going to target this Nute team with all of the different Separatist droids. And looking at my opponent's Grand Arena history, I saw that they usually took General Grievous Nuke to most of their matches to be able to counter Darth Revan, presumably, so then they could leave their Darth Revan on defense, which I assumed was in the back zone there. And so the result was a Nute team with all of these different droids, and, they could be a pretty strong team. I actually think I made a mistake here by taking Jedi Revan as the lead. I was like, oh, this is cool, I can just use him instead of Bastila, but I actually think Bastila would have been perfect here because I have all that extra bonus protection that they would have had to chew through. Instead, now, as we get closer to the end of this match, you'll see that I'm really concerned with trying to regenerate all of my protection before I take out the last of these droids. And all these droids, all these different characters can do a lot of damage, just like a small amount, but like they can really hurt your protection and potentially knock you down from getting 60 banners all the way down to 55. This team isn't the super strongest. It does have some good banner potential to be able to just chip away at you, and take away some of your efficiency in terms of banners. But overall, like I guess I wouldn't call this a premium team. Like if you want to take General Grievous Nuke, I guess this is maybe the best way to do it. I'm not really sure. I'm not convinced that General Grievous Nuke is actually the way to go, honestly. It's just not that efficient in Grand Arena. Like, great for territory wars, but for Grand Arena, and no offense to my opponent, it's a very effective squad. It is not efficient in the slightest. And so we're just trying to, figure out who I can call for assists to be able to get my protection all the way back. And all of these, extra bars of protection are a little bit frustrating. The protection up, because it kind of obscures who has full protection and who doesn't. I saw that Jolie needed some protection, so I called him for an assist, and turns out I guessed correctly, so 60 banners there against a pretty well reliced squad. Like I'm pleased enough with that result. But now we have this really strange leftovers squad with Wampa. Everything is relic. Relic 2 Wampa, First Order Stormtrooper at Relic 5, which means my opponent is probably going for the Galactic Legend, Kylo Ren. And otherwise there's Shaak T and a couple of the two leftover clones, the Sergeant and Cody, and they're all super high relic, and it's like, who do I really take against this? Like I can't underestimate it, or rather it's probably really easy to underestimate. And so we just need to take a Padme squad. I felt like I could probably spare Padme here, based on, I knew that one of my opponent's teams in the back was almost certainly going to be Darth Revan, which was consistent with every other match that they had, and consistent with the fact that they had General Grievous Nuke team, that they played. I felt like I could spare Padme here. I had other teams that would be able to deal with the other squads in the back there. So the goal here is really trying to maximize banners, and that means trying to get the protection up buff as much as we can. There's not really that many dispels here. Shaak T can dispel, and the rest of them, First Order Stormtrooper can, I guess, in the right circumstances, if he has advantage, which he does. But otherwise, that we also have a bunch of protection up buffs that we can't lose. Like, it's non-dispellable because of Padme's unique or leadership. I don't remember, but Anyways, I put Retribution up with General Kenobi just so that, whenever these guys have a lot of AoEs, so when they do an AoE, all of my guys are going to hit back. One thing that's important to note here, as I got 60 banners, that's great. I would have only gotten 59. Shaak T at some point did heal the small amount of protection that Jedi Knight Anakin lost, and that was the key to be able to get, full banners there. So as expected, my opponent did put Darth Revan in the back. And then they had also been taking a bounty hunters team, and that team is really strong, but I knew that my Imperial Troopers were going to be fast enough to be able to beat it. But first we needed to take out the one team that's just going to wreck me. If I don't have a way to, if I'm not able to beat it with my Darth Revan, then I don't really know. That's why I took my Darth Revan here though. So I went Fear here first. Both of my Darth Revan and Bastila are faster than my opponents, but not by much. And so you put Fear on everyone, Bastila gets her huge debuff on everyone, and then Marauder comes out, and I was able to use my own Marauder to just take him out before he could actually do any damage. So now we're targeting Bastila because she can do a lot of damage. Now we can actually debuff people now that she doesn't have her Dark Battle Meditation spell that she casts on us. I don't know if spell is the right word, but you guys get the picture. You're all nerds. So anyways, now we just got Malak to deal with, and honestly, that I was thinking about for a while. I was thinking, man, I think my Padme can beat this. I think it could, looking at it before I set my defenses, and the relic levels were just a little too high. I didn't feel 100% confident. So, my Darth Revan team is pretty strong. I haven't taken any mods off, actually, so it's just as fast as it was back when it was meta. And so happily I was able to get 59 banners. That's the dream. That doesn't always happen. And we can move on to our next 3 matches. Now let's take a little bit of time to discuss my decision making here in terms of the last 3 teams I needed to counter. Now I needed to take out the Jango bounty hunters, which were all really fast and had some good relics on them. The Traya, the Night Sisters team, which all had relics and were all really strong. And then there was some really strong Geonosians as well. And I wasn't really sure. My only 3 teams that I really felt comfortable against these guys were Commander Luke and Traya and Imperial Troopers, and all I knew was that Traya was not going to go against the bounty hunters. That was not going to be an option. In fact, Traya was probably not going to be used against the Night Sisters either. And so, this is a little bit like Sudoku. Like, you can figure out, like, the possibilities of which teams are going to go where. Commander Luke could probably counter all 3, with my relic levels. Troopers could take out Jango and Relic Night Sisters. Traya can only take out the Geonosians, frankly. And so that seemed a relatively obvious swap. So then it was the question of whether Commander Luke could take on Night Sisters, because frankly the Troopers had a great shot against Jango. Like, I think I could have gotten 60 against Jango or Night Sisters, either one with Troopers. Commander Luke, the question was, probably take out Night Sisters, but it can turn into a fiasco pretty dang quick. And my Troopers were fast enough to be able to take out Night Sisters. And so at the end of the day, my plan fell into place, and we could march on all these different teams and take them out, hopefully. In my opinion, the biggest question mark right now was trying to take out the Night Sisters team with Imperial Troopers. My Troopers were fast enough to be able to all go first and get off the initial volley, but you can never tell if that's going to be enough. Probably it's going to be enough. So I checked all the different Night Sisters' health and protection combined, and Spirit did have the least combined health and protection, as is usually the case. So I'm targeting her, took her out once, and then I just decided to keep going against her, using AoEs whenever I can to take out the health and protection of the other Night Sisters. And once she went down the 3rd time, then, everything went smoothly. Now, have you ever had a sinking feeling in your gut where you're like, oh man, this is gonna go sideways real fast. This is not going to end well. That was this moment for me. Taka is almost dead, but she can fully revive her entire team, and then they will just proceed to destroy my troopers. At least that's what I was thinking in this moment. And so all the Night Sisters came back, and that was a joyous occasion for some. And I did decide to just use my Death Mark shot on Talzin there, just because even if I wasn't able to actually clear the board, I would at least have her gone forever. She's non-revivable now. And, so luckily, all my troopers still had a bunch of turn meter, and so once she revived all of them, they did get a couple turns and took down some of my protection, but at the end of the day, I still got 58. I don't know that my troopers have ever gotten less than 60 against Night Sisters unless it was a 0. It's usually all or nothing, so 58 felt kind of strange. I mean, it also felt like a win, honestly, so happy enough with that. And now we have this really fast, really relict Jango Bounty Hunters team, and we really need to, be as cautious and controlling as possible here. My Commander Luke team doesn't have as many elements of control as some of my other control teams, but I was confident going into this. I was gonna win this almost no matter what. My guess is that I would win even if I put it on auto. The question is how many banners can we really get from it? So you start off, you need to stun Bosk because Bosk is going to taunt, and once he taunts, then you're gonna have a bad day. You're gonna just be stuck behind him potentially. Even though my DPS is good enough, I actually think maybe having him taunt would have been just fine, and I could have just taken him out. Next you're trying to get stuns on everyone, and reduce turn meter on everyone, and it's kind of just a funny match, honestly, because I've dialed these guys' offense up so high, and I've done so much to be able to counter General Skywalker, that when I'm faced with a team like this, it's a pretty resilient team, it still just melted. 56 banners though is not wonderful. One of my better teams on offense, and I only got 56, but we were still on course. We could still get over a 1900 banner score if we could beat this Geonosian squad. And I see a lot of people only taking the Sith trio against Geonosians, and frankly, I don't like the Sith trio against most Geonosian squads. You're going to lose a lot of banners if things go sideways, which they can. But they only take 3, and some of them are justly confident. They have high relics on their Sith trio. I haven't done that though. Scion is my only Gear 13, and he's only relic 1. And everyone else, they have most of their Gear 12 pieces, and they're decently modded, but they're not going to stand up against a really strong Geonosian squad. And so I did take these 2 really strong tanks, and you just need a lot of hit points, frankly. I did make a mistake here. I used the AoE on Scion. I normally really like to put the AoE with him, use it with him right away, but the fact is then it just gets dispelled by one of the Geonosians right away, and it does almost no good, and then you don't have an AoE to finish off Geonosians as they slowly melt their health and protection. And so now they're all getting pretty low on health and protection, honestly. I did manage to get Isolate onto the Brute, which is great, so he doesn't die, and then get regenerated and add a fully armed and operational Brute with his hit points and protection to the health pool of these Geonosians. And so you saw here, Scion used his special. Great, that's wonderful, but I wish I had an AoE there, because I probably could have knocked out some of these Geonosians. As it stands, I did manage to take out the Brood Alpha, so victory was somewhat inevitable, but just as a going away present, they decided to kill Nihilus on me, and I was suddenly looking at a very, very low total banner score. And then someone went and just touched Traya to knock off one more banner even. So, in this case, I do not regret whatsoever taking the full 5, because honestly, if I had just taken the trio, I would have lost here pretty hard, I think. So 49 banners though, awful, so bad that I was fairly efficient the rest of this match. There were things here and there that missed, but like nothing nearly as egregious as this. Like this was like a half loss. So I mean, at the end of the day, I still did get a clear. Didn't quite get the 1900 that I was hoping for. Honestly, I was hoping for 1910, but you know, my opponent did have General Grievous Nuke and a lot of other teams that were going to make him potentially less efficient. Now I do want to point out that I did get the feat here for Force Lightning, so that was great. And after all of my attacks were in, I found myself in rank number 6 in Division 1, so that was pretty cool. It didn't last for super long, but anyways, hours and hours later, I was waiting and waiting, and my opponent still hadn't attacked, and you know, you could see 2 hours and 28 minutes left. And then I checked another hour later, still no attacks, and we'd been talking a little bit, you know, via in-game chat, and he was like, yeah, I'm gonna attack, you know, it's just got to be later. And then I had to go to work, and you know, when I came back out, finally, my opponent had attacked, and here are the results. The first thing I ever noticed that when my opponent attacks is that I got full cleared. All my zones just vanish, all my little avatars just fall over. The second thing, of course, I noticed is the score, and the score was a big relief to me. Now, normally I would tell you guys what teams my opponent used against me because they did tell me, but he actually took a bunch of video footage, and he's going to send it to me, or he actually already has, and so I'm going to string that into a small video a little bit later. Only about 4 attacks on me, I think, that were actually recorded, but it's a pretty cool opportunity to be able to look at my defense in action. So we're gonna do that, probably post it a day after this is posted, so keep an eye out for that. But let's just take a minute to talk about my defenses. I mostly got one shot off the board, which, you know, that's going to happen when your opponent is putting certain squads on defense. You know, that Shaak T leftover squad and the Old Republic team both make way for your opponent to be able to take, you know, really strong offensive squads. And so the one squad that he tripped up on was against my General Grievous squad with Watt. And actually, after talking to him a little bit, he said that something came up and he just timed out like artificially, like it didn't actually, he should have full cleared me. And I'm inclined to believe him. Like, he has a really strong track record against you know, General Grievous squads with Jedi Knight Revan. But regardless, I was efficient enough to have beat him, even if he had beat that squad on the first try. So, you know, I'm glad that that didn't actually derail the actual results of the match. You know, even though it's in my favor, I would rather just, I'd rather lose if I deserve it than just get lucky because someone rings the doorbell. So, anyways. Alright, I did want to spend just a minute talking about this General Skywalker team on defense. Now, I was pretty sure that my opponent was going to put their General Skywalker on, or keep it, rather, for offense, because they didn't really have a team that could counter a full Relic 7 General Skywalker. And, you know, clearly from all my research that I did on, you know, their past experiences, they clearly valued being able to full clear their opponents. And you know, that means that you need to be able to use your own General Skywalker as the counter in the mirror match. And so, you know, I decided to put mine on defense because if I did leave it on defense, then my opponent was inherently going to get, you know, like a hit on their banners. Like they had a built-in deficit of like 6 banners or more. You know, if you take General Skywalker, even if his outclassed mine by a huge degree, I would at the very least, be taking out all of his protection bonuses, and he wouldn't be able to regenerate those. And so, you know, being able to place my General Skywalker on defense and force my opponent to take that hit in banners, even though I knew that they were going to be able to one-shot it, they were still going to go down by 5 banners. And I was able to start the match essentially with like kind of a bonus 5 banners total. You know, it's a pretty big advantage. And so, you know, work on your Commander Luke team to be able to counter General Skywalker, so then you can put your own Skywalker on defense and make his team's inefficiency work against your opponent rather than against you. Anyways, I was just happy that I had got through another match, and that was great, wonderful. to be 4-0. Hopefully I can go another 8-0, though I realize that's going to take quite a bit of luck. But after this match, and after I deployed my defenses for my next round, I was back to rank number 6. So that's pretty cool. Like, I don't know. I really don't think it's going to last for super long. You know, I think that a lot of people are going to be more efficient than me down the line, but this is really fun to be at rank 6, like, you know, perpetually. Like, I'm in the top 10, top 20 conversation right now as things currently stand. And so, you know, it's a pretty cool distinction. I really hope that I can keep it up, but, you know, if we can't, we can't. You know, I'm being realistic about it, but, you know, here's hoping. I would really like to be able to finish in the top 10 or top 20. So, you know, we'll keep working on that. And I think I'm going to let you guys go, though. Thank you guys so much for watching. And remember that in all things, Xaereth prevails.